What's up, guys? This video is specifically for the guys who keep saying, how did that guy get that girl? Right? He doesn't look like anything special. He kind of looks a little funny, right? He kind of looks a little weird. He doesn't look like a supermodel. How did that guy get that girl over there? If you're one of those guys who finds yourself saying that a lot when you look at different couples and, you know, people walking down the street, this video is for you to understand what's actually going on there, right? For anybody who's new to the channel, welcome. This is the Man Alive channel. It's all about cold approach. I'm aiming for this to be the #1 cold approach channel on the internet, right? The #1. If you need questions answered about cold approach, you come here. I'm inviting everybody to join the newsletter, manaliveexp@gmail.com, releasing newsletters, videos, exclusives, obviously, interviews, courses as well, for guys who really want to take on the challenge of cold approach. As I always say, cold approach is a big challenge. It's far from the easiest thing you can do with in terms of dating with yourself and your time. But if you're willing to work at it and you're willing to grind, I will be there to help you, right? My 18 years doing this, I don't like seeing guys suffer through this. So manaliveexp@gmail.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Click like, subscribe, share the channel if you find this video or other videos helpful, and stay tuned for more. So specifically about this topic, right? Always guys look and say, that hot ass girl with this scrubby looking guy, what's going on here? And we have to make a fundamental understanding here, right? Men and women choose partners very differently. They don't choose partners the same. As men, and I have a whole written piece that I'm doing about this, so also you can check my blog, Man Alive, at Wix. I'll post the link there. Men choose based on looks for the most part, right? A lot of guys don't even get past there. They don't even look at any other secondary traits, characteristics, nothing, right? Beauty. And that's all, and that's okay, right? Me too, us as men, beauty first. There's no problem with that, right? That's just the way it is. But because we are beauty first, we think women are the same. We think women do exactly the same thing that we do. They would look at a guy and say, oh, he's handsome. Oh, he has this bodybuilder build and he has abs. Oh, I'm in love. Well, I was going to say unfortunately, but it's actually fortunate. Fortunately, women don't work that way. Women don't work that way at all. For a man, we equate beauty to reproductive value, right? Like, my children will be healthy because this woman is beautiful. It actually doesn't make any sense. But again, we're not knocking the idea of guys going for beauty, right? Again, I'm a guy just like anyone else, right? I like good-looking girls. End of story, right? I have no apologies. It is what it is. But we as guys, we equate in here reproductive ability, children, our children potentially being healthy with this woman, with beauty. And they have nothing to do with each other, but that's what we do in our head, right? So beauty is the thing. Women look at intangibles. They don't look at the surface for the most part, right? We're not talking about, does a woman enjoy a guy who looks good, right? Who looks, who has the handsome face, right? And she does, but that's not necessarily what she's looking for, right? She's looking for confidence. She's looking for passion, purpose. She's looking for a guy who can focus and still his mind and get a single pointed focus, you know, chiseling out what he wants out of life, really going for things, diving in, self directed, all of these things, right? Because a man's reproductive value has nothing to do with how good he looks, which is funny enough because that's also the same with a woman, even though we like beauty. A man's reproductive value has nothing to do with what he looks like. It has to do with all of those things, right? Because the two archetypes of men, as I've talked about before, we'll talk about in the future, the lover and the provider, right? In both of those cases, it has nothing to do with a man's aesthetics. Zero, right? The lover is typically looked upon as obviously the guy with, you know, the Don Juan seducer type in more modern times, but equated with the warrior of past, right? The warrior was the big alpha guy, or and, you know, whether you want to use the term alpha or not, but the warrior was the male archetype, right? Warriors couldn't look pretty. That was not their job. Their job was to defend their woman, their children, their village with their bare hands, right? To be competent with that, to be, again, strong in body and mind, to be able to push themselves past previous limits, to be able to focus and hone in on goals and improve themselves, to be able to stay calm and poised in the face of pressure, to even facing death, right? To be able to be willing to put his life on the line every single time that he's going out to battle, right? None of those have anything to do with a guy looking like a pretty boy, right? Because a guy who look, you know, in essence, that might be stereotypical, but in essence, a guy who looks like a pretty boy probably is not going to do any of those, right? So he wouldn't be a good lover. And also the provider is just the taking care of children side, right? Would he have the resources to caretake for children, even if he's not there specifically, right? Again, even a provider side has nothing to do with a man's looks. So once you understand this, then you see, oh, right, because he's communicating something to here in her on either side, or maybe both sides, lover and provider, that he's a good match. He's a good fit. He's the good guy, right? This is a guy you should go for. So when you understand that, you don't get sucked into, wow, he doesn't look like a supermodel. He doesn't look like Mr., you know, Mr. Beachbody and everything like that. It has nothing to do, again, I repeat, I've said it a million times already. It has nothing to do with anything. Zero. Reproductive value for men comes from how they look. The only thing that matters, I will say that matters the most, is how a man takes care of himself, his grooming, his health, right? His style, right? Does he wear clothes that look silly on him versus things that look good? Because those communicate internally what the man is feeling about himself, what he believes about himself, what he believes about the world around him. Those communicate the internals, which women pay attention to. So things like that, grooming, style, health, are very important. But again, no reproductive value is given to a man looking like a male model. Zero. Zero. On the lover side or the provider side. So if you are a guy who is worried about this, train yourself to forget about it. Train yourself. It's a slow process, right? You don't erase beliefs overnight. A lot of mental work, a lot of mindset work in cold approach and in life in general is about erasing old beliefs that no longer serve you, This is one that no longer serves you. It takes time to do, but you should definitely listen to this tons and tons of times. And also go look at some of the other stuff that I've done. And there will be more in the future. Go look at other people who talk about this, right? To erase this old junk that's in your head where it's about looks, right? You're thinking in terms of being a man, right? When we look at women, first and foremost, and again, like I said, most guys don't even get past that. It's just beauty. It's just beauty. So you think that women look at men the exact same way, and it doesn't happen that way. It doesn't work that way. There's a funny story that I've also have written in the article that I did about David Data, who is the author of Way of the Superior Man. He has a second book, I think his second book, Intimate Communion. So it's about, you know, uh, gender roles and masculine, feminine polarity in a relationship. And he talks about when he did a tour, a speaking tour, went around his audiences, a good amount of women in them as well as men, so not just men. He would ask, he would do polls everywhere he went about the top 10 traits that men liked in women and women liked in men. So if you've been listening to this video so far, up until this point, you know what the top 10 traits that men chose are. You already know, right? Because it really was that simple. It was beauty, 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 all the way down the line. Completely. Top 10. All 10 were beauty. All 10. So that gives you something to think about. But on the female side, but on the women's side, all intangibles. Confidence, poise, passion, focus, discipline. All things that have nothing to do with the exterior, the outward appearance. That's what they're looking for in men. So you should absolutely, if you're into reading, or you should be into reading because reading conveys a lot of good information, right, in a short period of time, relatively. Pick up Intimate Communion by David Data. I think it's closer to the end of the book. I'll probably, I'll look through it and then edit the description to probably put where it is in the book. But definitely, it's an eye opener. It's a big, big, big game changing shift to make. Huge. A related thing that had popped in my mind when I was preparing all of this is, I'm not too sure however long, whoever's watching this video, how long you've been in the community, but there's a guy who we call Tyler from Real Social Dynamics. And Real Social Dynamics was a, cold approach company. They taught cold approach. He gave the story, and he also showed, I think he showed the infield of this happening. He goes up to a girl, and she calls him ugly, right? You're immediately off the bat, right? Ugly, blah, 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 you know, get out of here, This was at a nightclub. So he starts talking to her, starts warming up, conveying personality, right? He's a funny, interesting, witty guy. And now all of a sudden she calls him cute. Just like that. What the point of me mentioning it was that his looks didn't change in a span of 2 minutes, right? What changed was the energy, his vibe, his charisma, the intangibles, like we said, that he was conveying, that he was bringing to the surface. That's what changed. And when that changed, when she felt the difference, right, which is what attraction is, right? It's a subconscious emotion. It rises up subconsciously from a man's behavior. It's all behavior, right? Because women look for intangibles. These are all behavioral things. When his behavior started to change, she turned around and called him cute. but his looks never changed. It was his behavior as he started to warm up and get more in the zone, as we say, right? She registered him as looking better, but his looks didn't change. And this happens all the time. It's happened to me as well. So it's the intangibles are the biggest part. The intangibles create attraction. That's the most important part. You understand? When you learn the intangibles, when you master the intangibles, sorry, my cat is acting up. When you master the intangibles, that's when things change. So you want to keep an eye on that. Attraction is built through intangibles. It's built through behavior, behavioral cues, right? You learn the right behavior, you practice it, it becomes a part of you. You can generate attraction through that. So, again, if you are one of those guys who looks around and says, no way that guy's with that girl, now you understand why you have no need to do that. That women go off intangibles and behavior and energy, right? And that as men, we're a lot of us, the average guy, is quick to come to the conclusion that women make mating choices the way we do, which is totally false. Now that you understand that, you don't have to go back to thinking like that. You can start to think new things. I will continue to talk about this. I will continue to beat this drum just so guys understand, because this itself is a game changer. This itself is a lifesaver. It's been a lifesaver for me and everybody that I know who is good with girls, right? Who gets the girls that they want. So, again, listen to this as many times as you want. And I will post as many links to related things and similar things and articles, books, interviews that talk about this. You know, things that I've done, but also what else is out there on the internet. Just so you can understand that women choose the intangibles. They choose based off behavior. And it can be learned or unlearned in the case of bad behavior. And that's your saving grace. So until next time, again, I make a plug for my newsletter. Sign up for it, manaliveexp@gmail.com. Check out my blog. I'm going to put a link there. I'm going to put a link to the written copy of this video. And like I said, like, share, subscribe, send it to everybody you think needs to know about this. So until next time.